AI is something that is going to permeate every nuance of our life. And it's our endeavor to try and get you up to speed and upskilled as soon as we can. We have 10, so we are kicking off. Here's a quick snippet of how the rise in data has gone in from 2 zettabytes, which is basically a trillion terabytes, to almost about 181 zettabytes in 2025. That is almost a whopping 90x increase in close to whatever decade and a half. And if you were to look at the industry transformations, we are at the cusp of something really massive. And this isn't like just your dot-com boom or smartphone boom in the last 2, 3 decades. This is something which is a paradigm shift in industrial constructs itself. Much like how back in the 18th century, the steam energy, mechanical production came to fore, or in the 19th century when electrical power sort of revolutionized manufacturing and the industries associated. And then, of course, our advent of 20th century assembly line techniques pioneered by Ford and the like, transformation of automobiles, bringing in that concept of Andon Cord and Toyota and so many others, both America and Toyota, Detroit automakers and so on. And now we are at the cusp of something as massive, if not bigger. And this is what we call as the smart factories that are leveraging autonomous AI capabilities, building AI agents in billions, getting the constructs of AI to the hands of the everyday consumer, making it ubiquitous to the 90% of the unstructured constructs that exist within the enterprise and so on and so forth. Digital transformation, and I'll sort of accelerate as we gradually go along. We have quite a lot of content to cover in a very short span of time. I have about 15 minutes, of which 5 minutes has been spent just letting people accumulate. Digital transformation largely is around, if you look at the L0 metrics for how we measure success or how we measure or solve for within, whether it's enterprises or whether it is within consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is a lot more ubiquitous. It's access to information. It's point in time, get the query, get the prompt, structure it right, get the response. Whereas in the enterprise, it's a lot more complex. You need to solve for workflow automation or what we call as process optimization, service differentiation, boosting performance of your efficiency of your, maybe, make it as a co-pilot or over time, even completely replace those workers that are involved in redundant activities, improving efficiency, throughput, so on. And of course, you can expand to markets. What you build for one market, you can pretty much easily cross-pollinate into others through AI constructs. It's a key enabler, and Skill Agents helps you get there, which is basically unlocking your potential, largely around the capabilities where you help accelerate time to innovation, speed of innovation, if you will. What would take perhaps 6 months, 8 months to get an MVP minimum product out there in the market, through AI tools and technologies, it's a massive boost where you can quickly mock up prototypes, get pitches, go to investors, raise some early funding, build teams. There is this concept called one-man startup, and that's not far. You have coding agents, you have the ability to go to market agents, you have agents for everything now. Flexibility, where you can quickly iterate, changing market requirements. Go-to-market fit is always a moving goalpost, as we all know. Productivity, like I already highlighted, it accelerates throughput incredibly and massively, and of course helps you gain that competitive edge. Now, there is a concept which is a great book by McAfee and Rick, which was largely around the concepts of machines, platforms, and crowd. Machines is really all about your AI ML. This is a great book that I used in an IIT Bombay talk almost 3+ years ago, March of 22, where I spoke about this construct where we were at that inflection point. This book actually came in 17, just after DeepMind of Google had beaten the human in AlphaGo. I'll get to it in a bit. But largely, it summarizes the concept and the inflection point and the tipping point and switch over into the AI world, right? There is that pre-AI and post-AI world. Many aggregate it or perhaps benchmark that with November 22, which is when ChatGPT came in. That's really the advent of just consumer adoption. But in the enterprise world, AI is not a new thing. It's actually been around for decades together, machine learning, algorithms, etc. Attention is all you need, which is a Google paper, which sort of revolutionized, and the others within the OpenAI universe basically took it and built what we today know as generative pre-trained transformer models. Basically, completely changed the landscape, if you will. So machine is the concept of how machines will take over and perform and solve for the redundancies and automation capabilities, whether it is through AI agents or take an instruction and run with it across agentic AI workflows, as we call it. Platform is a concept which we are all familiar with, which is two-way, three-way marketplaces, platforms like Flipkart, Amazon, Ola, Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, Zepto, etc. Now, what do they all solve for? Which is basically solve for a cold start problem. You have a consumer, which is a demand side. You have a supplier, which is a supply side, and they kickstart a self-fulfilling flywheel. It's a virtuous cycle, feeds on itself. You solve for customer experience, solve for price, you solve for availability, you solve for the breadth of product portfolio and the services that you want to deliver. And then you decide how you want to solve for the delivery constructs, and that's the platform construct. Now you apply to ride sharing, which is an Uber, Ola. You apply to commerce, Zepto, Flipkart, Amazon, whoever, or you solve for it in myriad other use cases like even learning platforms and so on, like our skill agents, right? Where you kickstart that fulfilling flywheel and get content, get learners, make sure that you have trainers like us coming in real time and talking to you, and self-fulfilling flywheel of where they see live demos. How can AI revolutionize? Areva, I need to go in and enroll into skill agents and so on. And then, of course, you have the crowd, which is really democratization of the constructs. If you will, large platforms are almost always suffering from, like I highlighted, the Andrew Chen book. You all should probably give it a read. It's called The Cold Start Problem. It's a great read. Basically, he talks about this concept of the crowd, right? Basically, how the meerkat effect and so on, and what is the tipping point, and how you solve for the alley threshold and exceed that. And like you don't want, let's say you want an Uber and you want to wait forever to get that. That's not great customer experience. At the end of the day, if you're still calling for an Uber, you're still packing your bags and suddenly the Uber guy arrives, that's over optimization. Again, you don't want that. It's not a expected outcome either. So you want to solve for the sweet spot. In the AI world, we just go back to the concept of what you call as a Polanyi paradox. It's a tacit way of you know more than what you can tell. We implicitly know viscerally, we just don't know how to express it, which is really what the Polanyi paradox is. And AlphaGo, Google DeepMind's concept, which beat a human at the Go game, which is arguably one of the most toughest games in strategy, a Chinese/Japanese game, depending on who you speak to, solved for it. It's a 2,500-year-old plus game, like much like chess, even more complex in some ways, as many people would say. And you got the computer for the first time to learn all the moves, millions of moves, and actually beat that human. And that's the Mode 37 and how AI can change the world in evaluating AI. So that's this concept of symbolic AI and basically how you build machine learning to be able to beat a human at their own game. Reinforcement learning, on the other hand, is largely got to do with how you study your environment around you, take an action, basically receive a sort of a reward, right? Incentivization. That the recent DeepSeek launch on 20th of Jan, made generally available on 25th, the 27th of Jan, completely bashed the US stock markets by over $1 trillion. Nvidia stock fell down $600 billion in one day. Because it was a torchbearer of the AI industry, supplying GPUs and processing and GPU compute. A large part of DeepSeek as a model, a large language model that came out of China from a small lab, suddenly shook the industry because they suddenly produced a $6 million model. That's what they claim, where there are a lot of these policies at play, whether it was GRPO, group-related policy optimization, which we'll get to in a bit later in the session. But it's all about incentivization, rewards, and then you update how behavior will be. Much like how you teach a child, you eat quickly, I'm going to give you this. You incentivize them for good behavior and penalize. So basically, you get that constructive loop going. How has our world of AI evolved? Basically, you started with perception AI, you recognize patterns, voice recognition, so on and so forth. You came in into generative AI, where now your marketing collaterals, your sales literature, your product literature, your HR literature, your ability to create images, your ability to create entire workflows, content per se, if you will, generation and so on, got a leg up, right? Agentic AI is the next step in the evolution where you started building coding assistants like the tools that we use, which we'll talk of in a bit, and we'll also demonstrate some to you, where tools like Cursor, tools like Vercel, and so on, code generating agents, which are catching up real fast. And the large language models are also jumping into that fray and trying to get better at it, right? And then, of course, you have advanced customer service, patient care, healthcare applications. We'll get to it in a bit. Physical AI is obviously a full self-driving, and the robots and others. Agentic, it's still going to be a lot to do with ability to create full self-driving and making sure that systems learn on their own. Physical is all about bots ruling our universe, the Optimus robots, or bots in say factories, industry automation, and so on. Use cases of which we'll talk of in a bit. ChatGPT was a great way to sort of getting to say it was the fastest on ramp to the first 100 million users in comparison with the rest in the game. It was 27th of Jan, which was a seminal moment in the world of AI, where DeepSeek came up with a low-cost model and suddenly shook the landscape. You have a whole bunch of models along the way, which are large language models and small language models. OpenAI, the torchbearer, if you will, came up from with the ChatGPT construct. Where we are is with GPT-4.1, great capabilities, allowing for people, even non-coders, to suddenly become coder and making them more humane. Google Gemini algorithms, your Anthropic Claude 4 launched a fortnight ago. Meta's Llama 4 has been around for the last 2 months. DeepSeek came up in Jan, and now they have R2, Reasoning 2 model. They also have reasoning capabilities, by the way. The 27 Jan event, as I spoke earlier, was more like a Sputnik moment, right? Suddenly, you basically launch a model which can come and append the best of the best and suddenly wipe off so much of value from markets. So therefore, the change is for real. And they did it through a lot of constructs I won't get into, but largely they were trained on a lot more less dollars that basically went into using the data sets and building it for optimizations technologically, of which I won't get into today, but largely beat the best at their own game. Future of AI is all about AI agents, right? So you're going to have billions and billions of AI agents that are going to rule the world in personal, which is your digital assistants, enterprise and workflow automation, agentic workflows, and so on. Internet of Things, in where you have IoT, Internet of Things agents that are leveraging smart devices, which is leveraging AI. Enable technology. Let's dive into some of the use cases and applications, right? AI first business models can power the world across the gamut, right? Or every industry will be completely appended by AI. Whether it is design and AI powered product service creation, quickly get design constructs out into the market. Figma mocks can be done like accelerated pace. You can build high fidelity prototypes, not even low. Logistics, supply chain automation can happen. You can have entire systems and, if you will, the state transition solved for with great transparency. Sales marketing, a huge boost. Complete, take a content, push it into sales marketing, track leads, track opportunities. We'll show in a bit that Rajesh will demonstrate. HR automation, great. Search for leads, search for referrals, search for candidates. Get it into scanning and skimming of those resumes, put it into your database, push it to your hiring managers, close the loop. These are just some samples, right? I'll talk about more industries as well. Industries are across the gamut. So I won't even, so just a snippet, right? Financial services, fraud risk management, manufacturing, machines speaking to each other, maintenance, quality, a certain machine falls below a certain quality threshold, it alerts automatically. The system speaks to you as opposed to you speaking to the system. Healthcare, e-commerce can be automated in a big way. Razorpay just announced yesterday that they have built in some capabilities to automate their entire workflows. Stripe had done it almost about 6, 8 months ago. Media entertainment has become simplified because content creation has become so easy. All of us have played around with Ghibli's of GPT. Cloud compute, where you can actually flag inefficiencies, optimization, observability platforms. Healthcare, obviously, diagnostic capabilities. Just some time ago, I uploaded the X-ray of one of my elderly aunties into GPT and asked for the diagnosis. And then I compared it, obviously, with human feedback from what the real doctor was telling me. Not that that is a recommended approach, but I saw that there is an alarming similarity in what I saw on GPT's outcome with the value that it was able to reach. So think about what it can do for the world of radiology reports, maybe the diagnosis in the future. It will obviously evolve over time. Personalized medicine, operational efficiency, and so on. Financial sector, algorithmic trading, compliance is a huge deal. Regulatory aspects are a huge deal. Customer service is a huge deal. All of us have interacted with bots. They suck today. Transportation, mobility, I spoke about full self-driving. Skill agents can basically, platforms like skill agents will only increase. You will build custom tailored training capability. You'll basically build monetized models around those. You're going to be able to reduce teacher burden, democratize education, if you will. Economic impact is there to say. I won't even speak of AGI. That is about trying to get machine intelligence greater than human intelligence. I'll talk a little about the tools because Rajesh will explain these in detail later as well. A whole bunch of them, right? Cursor is used as an example as a code editor and an agent that aids developers to go build auto code, vibe coding, if you will, in addition to also serving as a co-pilot. Versal is another which basically does. Look at the annual revenue run rate of these guys, right? So they have accelerated massively. Lovable is a tool that helps you create websites on the Jiffy. What took months together can be done in a span of half a and so on. There are so many more. N8 builds workflow automation that Rajesh will show in a bit. We have other capabilities from LLM models like Manus and OpenAI and Claude that I will show in a bit and so on. Workflow tools, Google Notebook LM, you all, if you haven't tried, please try it out. It's a great tool. You just upload a video or something, it shows you in the form of a podcast and a quick blurb and summary and so on. Model context protocol, Rajesh will talk of this. I won't dwell on it. He'll even give you demos around. That's part of the charter for today as well. Adaptation strategies is about trying to understand the potential, develop skills, and partner, right? That's the way to do it is to take courses like what we're delivering. Even if it comes at a fee, do it. It's timely investment for each of you. That's my personal recommendation, having been a practitioner in AI for the last 8, 9 years. Practical projects, dive in, work with AI companies or players like us, and then explore entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship within your organizations. Content, these are all the verticals we spoke of it.